not allowed. I act as a natural health consultant here in Tennessee. I also have my master's in public health, my certified health education specialist, and all these other alphabet soups. Okay, so what is a naturopathic doctor? I have a bunch of slides here at the beginning that talk about what a naturopathic doctor is. It's for your information because a lot of people ask, like in Tennessee, people aren't usually familiar with what a naturopathic doctor is. So I include these in the presentation for you to reference on your own time later when I email you the presentation, because it's too much information to try to include in today's presentation. But the slides are here if you are curious. And there are 26 states and jurisdictions in the United States that allow naturopathic doctors to be licensed primary care physicians. If you look here, Tennessee is not one of them. Tennessee, we're working on it. So the bills are pending. Okay, this is my disclaimer. I already gave it, which is I'm not a licensed primary care physician. This is for informational purposes only. Okay, so more about naturopathic medicine. All right, today's presentation is going to be about healing teas and beverages. This is, as I was putting this presentation together, I realized I could talk about this for 8 hours. So there's just a lot to it. So we're going to go through, hopefully, and teach you some of the high points, and that'll be good. All right, this is sort of an outline of some of the things we're going to talk about today. Not just teas, but it's also beverages, healing beverages. So we'll talk about other things. So we're going to start out with herbs, though, herbal teas. Okay, I have a lot of herbal teas on the back, and we can go through them. I've had 9 botanical medicine classes. There are so many herbs that have so many healing aspects to them. But the main thing to remember is when you're making a tea, you want it to taste good. So a lot of the teas I give from a medicinal standpoint aren't designed to taste good. But some teas, hopefully the ones I'm talking today, can be medicinal and taste good at the same time. So we're going to go through some of them. Okay. So here are some of the teas that I have on the back here. These are some of my favorite ones. I don't know how many of you go to Trader Joe's, but I really love their tea blends there. So I have, this is, I would call all these herbs you see here represent 1/20th of my herbal apothecary. I've got an entire herbal apothecary that has just a ton of herbs, and I custom blend my own herbal teas with these little, you can buy these packs of tea bags, right, and then I blend them in a bowl, and then I put them, and I'll make medicinal tea blends for my clients, you know, people who have urinary tract infections. That was the one I did last week, and people who have kidney stones and some other things. There are some great tea blends that you can custom make that are very effective. So that is one way to do it. It's also very expensive and time consuming, and for most people, you don't need to do that. So that's why today I'm going to focus on some great tea blends that you can buy that are fantastic. And but you can also go, dive into your own herbal blending thing if you want to. That's not what this class is about, how to blend your own herbs. Or blend the herbs for purposes. But these are great teas. And I'm going to go through each of them, so let me do that. Okay, so this one is one I couldn't find. I went to Trader Joe's. It's one of my favorites, but they didn't have it at Trader Joe's this last week. But keep your eye open for this one, especially if you have high blood pressure, because hibiscus tea has been shown in studies that if you can drink 3 cups a day, it will lower your systolic blood pressure by over 10 points. So that is fantastic. And what I like about teas as well is most of us are chronically dehydrated, so it's going to get the double whammy of giving you a hydration. So this tea, I was going to bring in my hibiscus tea herb so you can see what it looks like. I don't find it very tasty. A lot of people do. It tastes sour, like lemons. That's, sort of. It's a sour taste, hibiscus. So this particular tea blend is fantastic. I couldn't blend it myself better. They have all these herbs in it: hibiscus, rose hips, lemongrass, peppermint, orange peel, lemon verbena, and wild cherry bark. And I'm telling you what, it actually tastes good. It tastes like it's a delicious blend, and it's a great way to get your 3 cups of hibiscus, into your diet. And also, it's a great way of getting vitamin C. And I could go on and on, a whole lecture on plant-based vitamin C, which is what rose hips is, and hibiscus. But plant-based vitamin C especially will heal the endothelial lining of your vasculature and help your arteries not be sticky for many of you who've been to my lectures before, I talk about how when your blood vessels are sticky, that's when the cholesterol and the calcium sticks to it and causes blockages. But I'm not worried about the cholesterol and the calcium in your blood sticking to your arteries if your arteries aren't sticky. So instead of focusing primarily on lowering your cholesterol and all of these other things that we do in allopathic medicine, I like to go back to the root cause, which is why are your arteries so sticky in the first place? And it's because the endothelial lining, that's the lining of the cells of your blood vessels, get damaged. And there is some schools of thought that I prescribe to, that I believe, that the damage to your endothelial lining is actually a local scurvy of the blood vessels. Well, scurvy is vitamin C deficiency. So if you can raise the vitamin C, serum vitamin C, in your blood vessels, you will heal the endothelial lining and make your blood vessels less sticky. And then that's really going to help with everything in terms of lowering your risk of a coronary event. So this is a great tea for lowering your blood pressure as well as healing your endothelial lining. And then there's all these other things that it'll help with. But I'm going to speed up because I got so many slides.
You can't talk any faster.
You want to bet me? I agree. That is my thing that I have to work on. Is,
Now, did you say rose hips has vitamin C?
yes, it's one of the best plant-based vitamin C's available, along with camu camu and acerola cherry. Those are the top 3 food-based sources of vitamin C. So, for example, in my family, heart disease runs in our family, and so I do everything I can for myself as a soon-to-be 50-year-old, and also with my parents, we all take plant-based vitamin C. You can take, you'll find, if you Google it online, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but they will say, oh, ascorbic acid's identical chemically, it's absolutely identical, and while I can't argue that the chemical structure of ascorbic acid and plant-based vitamin C are identical, because they are, I will say clinically, I've seen a dramatic difference in how people respond to 100% plant-based vitamin C compared to ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid almost doesn't do anything. When I've tried to treat people's rashes and some other things, which is a sign if you have skin rashes or eczema or psoriasis, the endothelial lining gets leaky, sort of like leaky gut, but this is leaky blood vessels, and that's when you get rashes and things happening with your skin. If you can heal that lining with plant-based vitamin C, you'll find a lot of times people's chronic idiopathic, that means we don't know why, rash will go away. So I have had a lot of luck with plant-based vitamin C. It's very hard to find, very hard to find. I've only found 2 sources for supplements that I like, and if you're interested, write down next to your name, vitamin C, and I'll send you those sources. But you can also get this from your tea. So that's why I highly recommend people start incorporating tea for hydration and other things. So this is another tea blend that's one of my personal favorites. It does have black tea in it, this one, although there is a version that doesn't have black tea in it, so I can't remember if the one that I have back there has black tea or not. I like the one without the black tea the best because I can drink it at night and it tastes almost like a chai. So I'll put some MCT oil powder to make it creamy and a little bit of a stevia or something, and it tastes just delicious. It's just a delicious way to get herbs into your diet. Okay, this is another one for stress. I love this one because it has elderberry and it has ashwagandha. And those are 2 very medicinal herbs that will boost your immune system and help you deal with stress better. So as a medical student, a lot of my classmates daily took ashwagandha just as an adaptogen to help their bodies level out and modulate their stress, which is cortisol levels and things like that, because we were taking lots of tests and exams and clinic competencies and other things. Okay, this is another favorite herb of mine. It's absolutely fantastic. Personally, I believe most people anybody who has urinary issues, urinary tract issues, or kidney stones, should have this in their medicine cabinet. It's a very grassy, mild grassy taste to it, herbal type taste. It's called Chanca piedra, and it is very effective at dissolving kidney stones. So if you have a predisposition to having kidney stones, then I recommend you just keep this in your cabinet and try to drink a cup of tea 2 or 3 times a week if you can. Just make it a habit. It's very light. It's not offensive. It tastes fine, just a little bit more than water. I have it in the back if anybody would like to try it. You're welcome to put a tea bag in, put some hot water and see what it tastes like. But it's very medicinal, works fantastic. There's almost no contraindications at all that I have found. And another thing that is awesome about it is if you have hardening of the arteries, so let's say you've done a coronary artery calcium score and your coronary artery calcium is high, and allopathic medicine will tell you there's nothing you can do to decrease the accumulation of plaque in your arteries, and that's not true. It's been proven in many medical studies there are several things you can do, but one of them is drink Chankapee or tea, because the same mechanism that dissolves the kidney stones, which are typically calcium oxalate stones, that calcium is what is stuck to your arterial walls, and it will also slowly over time decrease your coronary artery calcification because it dissolves calcium. It chelates it, it binds with it, and helps you excrete it. So it's very good for your urinary tract, it's very good for your kidneys, very good for your arterial walls. Okay, so super, super good one to have. Also, these other ones are fantastic. They, recently I had a woman with a urinary tract infection who she could not get rid of it. It just was really sticking around, and she didn't want to take antibiotics. This was one part of her, the recommendations I gave her was to take a tea that had nettle leaf, gallium, parsley, and celery seed, because it has all of those herbs have different functions that work very synergistically together, increasing urinary frequency, making the bacteria in the bladder be anti-adhesive, so it will be willing to be flushed out, and those kinds of things. This is great for elderly, especially this kind of, any tea that has nettle and any of these ingredients in it are fantastic for men, older men whose prostates get larger as we get older, and makes it, the urine stays stagnant in the bladder longer because you can't get rid of it fast enough, because it's tighter and harder to get rid of. So that promotes a bacterial growth environment. So you want to do things to counteract the bacterial promoting environment, and this would be one way to do it. So is to drink these kinds of teas. Okay, so this is another one that I consider most everyone should have in their medicine cabinet. It's how many of you have heard of this tea? A lot of people have heard of it. That's great. It has the herb senna. And so if you've ever heard of the over-the-counter herb that you can buy called Senecot, Senecot is just senna. It's an herb, right? Now, I don't recommend you use smooth move tea or any senna tea or any senna herbal supplement like Senecot every day. It makes the peristaltic motion of your colon lazy. And so you will have a hard time having a bowel movement on your own. You'll become dependent on the senna. So a lot of people take it every day. I do not recommend that. I recommend you take it when you need it. But having it around is a great idea. Having a couple tea bags in your travel kit, if you're going to see your grandkids or you're going to have an overnighter in a hotel, that's when people get constipated sometimes. Having a couple tea bags around is a good idea. It works great. Just don't take it regularly. Okay, this is another tea that people haven't heard a lot about, an herb, is sage. And sage you think of when stuffing at Thanksgiving or something like that, but sage is actually extremely good for cognitive health, and it's extremely good for hot flashes. Those are the two things. So that means men and women, it's very good for. And so I don't like the taste of it. It tastes like what you'd think, stuffing or something, right? I have a hard time drinking some herbs. It's not my favorite thing. But I'll tell you what, when you mix sage with pineapple, with freeze-dried pineapple, it tastes really good. It's an interesting combination of flavors that makes it taste good. So on the left back there, I have 2 glass jars. One is a sage tea. That's my own blend from my own herbs. And so it's sage, red clover, and freeze-dried pineapple. And it's just a great blend for cognitive health. I like to drink it cold in the summer as a refreshing drink when I'm after gardening and I'm dripping sweat or something, or going on a walk, I'll drink that. I don't like it to have sweetener in it, but some people would. You're welcome to, I'll talk about sweeteners later. But just on its own, it can start growing on you. You'll start liking it as just a refreshing beverage to drink. So really, really an important drink. Oh, and it also can ease arthritis symptoms, which is fantastic for older people as well. So for all these reasons, it's a great tea as an older person to start using. I like it. So anyway, so I decided in this presentation I was going to do a lot less of published medical studies because I sort of overwhelm people a lot. So, there are references. If you're interested in a lot of the references, let me know and I'll email those to you separately. We have so much to cover that I'm going to not show as many. Okay, barley tea. That's the other glass jar that's back there, is I have barley tea. Most people have not heard of barley tea in the United States, and it's extremely popular in Japan and I think China, I can't remember, but definitely Japan, and they call it Muvichi tea, I think. I'm probably massacring that name, but it's barley tea, and is typically drank cold, and to me, it's a unique, toasty type flavor, mild-ish, and but refreshing in an interesting way. So like I like to make a big pitcher of it and keep it in the refrigerator in the summertime, and then when I'm gardening or in the winter, if I use a sauna, if I get in the sauna at the YMCA or at my house, I will drink a big container of it, because for me it's very thirst quenching. It's like what I want to drink when I'm really thirsty, but it's not what you want to drink typically if you want a hot mug of something. Although people are different and people do drink it hot, it's just typically drank cold. And some of the, this is the microscopic print, but barley tea is outstanding from a health perspective. It is a tonic. It's something, if you can figure out how to get barley tea into your diet, then do it. It's a really, really great thing to drink. Like I said, keep a big pitcher of it in your refrigerator and just learn to drink it. It's fantastic. It aids in weight loss. When I think of barley tea, I think of blood purification. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. So you see, number 9, purifies the blood, helps cleanse the blood, and you know, from a physician standpoint, you don't want your blood cells themselves to be sticky. So not only do we not want calcium and cholesterol to stick to our arterial walls, but we don't want the blood vessels themselves clumping together, because that can cause clots and thrombosis and all kinds of things. And the barley tea will help the blood vessels be more smooth and viscous and not be clumpy, right? So this is super fantastic. Especially in this day and age when we're seeing myocarditis and all kinds of other heart problems and blood clotting issues seem to be increasing. This is a good tea to help counteract that. Okay, this is a tea. How many of you have heard of this tea? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, what about this? I'm going to go back to this tea. Have you heard? How many of you have heard this tea? Same thing. Okay, they're synonymous. There's just 2 different names for the same tea. Okay, and it's a tea blend that seems to have originated from the Native Americans in Ontario, Canada. It has 4 main ingredients, which are burdock root, sheep sorrel, slippery elm bark, and rhubarb root. And it is claimed to have anti-cancer fighting properties. And so this nurse right here, her name is Renee Casey, and if you spell her name backwards, it's Essiac. So, and it's supposedly, according to her, cancer fighting. Now, obviously these things are very controversial. You'll have to do your own homework. But she's had good luck in her life when she was alive. I don't think she's alive anymore. But it's still very, very popular. I'm sorry?
2078.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And so it's, a lot of people swear by it, that it helps a lot. I will say, I can't say if it's cancer fighting or not myself, because I haven't had a lot of clinical experience using it, but I know it's very popular with people, and I am familiar with these herbs, and I can tell you from my herbal expertise that these are fantastic herbs and a ton of other stuff. So even if it's not anti-cancer fighting, it's an extremely healthy tea, with herbs that aren't necessarily super common in tea blends that you would find unless you look specifically for Essiac tea. Which the good news is you can go online to Amazon and you can order it and try it and see what you think. I have it here with me. I think I remembered to bring it. I may not. I may have forgotten it. Dang it! Because I have this one in my refrigerator right here. And you can mix it, shake it up, and you put it in a little glass, and then you can mix sparkling water with it or something and just drink it like a little tonic at night. And it has a sweet taste. I love burdock root. It's one of my favorites. It has a natural sweet taste, and so it's I don't have to add any sweetener, and so I find the taste of the Essiac tea pretty good. You know, I drink it more like a tonic though, where I mix it with sparkling water and just sort of guzzle a little juice glass full of it occasionally.
Number 4.
Yep.
Back to number 4.
Yep.
What does that mean in sheep sorrel? What is that?
These are herbs.
Those are herbs.
They're all 4 herbs. So this is the formula. That's the formula for this Essiac blend tea,
They
right?
come from sheep?
No, it doesn't. I think they call it that because the sheep used to eat it. I should know the answer to that with my 9.
What's that again? What was your question? I know a
Does
little
the
bit about
sheep-
this.
Oh, she said, does the sheep sorrel come from sheep? No,
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
why they call it
No,
sheep
no.
sorrel. Why do they call it sheep's wool, do you know?
No, I don't.
What do you
It's
know?
bark, isn't it?
Is it the bark? You know, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'd have to look up if it's
That's
sheep's or if
you
it's the
got-
bark
you
or
got
not.
yours, I don't know.
Actually, let me go back to this. Let's see if it says if it's the bark. Slippery elm bark. This one says aerial parts, so it would be the flowers.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, and this is the root, burdock root for sure, and, yeah, and rhubarb root, so, and then the bark. Okay, so that's the formula for the tea. She did not make up this formula. She, I don't want to say stole it, but she borrowed the formula from the Native American Indians and then repackaged and named it with her name spelled backwards, right? But it's the same thing. Okay, so now let's go on. Here's another tea.
Yeah.
This is, I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Yeah. So nettle tea, so, you know, I don't think in Tennessee we have a lot of stinging nettle plants, do we? Do we have that a lot here?
It's hard to find them, I'll tell
Hard to
you.
find? Okay.
Yeah.
When I was living
It's natural, actually.
where?
It's a natural,
Weed.
for this area, because, and it attracts the monarch.
Absolutely, monarch
Yeah,
butterflies.
okay,
I
excuse me.
love stinging nettle. When I was living in Washington, while I was going to medical school, stinging nettle was everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Way taller than me. It was like this pest. I mean, really everywhere. So I harvested tons of it, and I harvested the roots, the leaves, and the seeds to make medicine, because each of them have different properties, medicinal properties. The seeds I love and are almost impossible to get anywhere, online or anywhere. They're good for regenerating your kidney. So I've had amazing luck with people who are in kidney failure or about to go into stage 4, kidney disease, reversing it with nettle seeds. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the leaves. So the leaves, okay, are right here. And the leaves are fantastic for making tea. And, it's interesting. The first time I had a really strong brewed, nettle tea with nothing else in it, the first thing that came to my mind, even though it looks very clear and it has like a herbal taste to it, grassy, not pleasant, not unpleasant in my opinion, but it reminded me of milk. Like it has a milk taste. Now, I've asked my classmates, does it taste like milk to you? And they're like, no. Well, what I believe I'm sensing is the calcium, right? It is super high in calcium. So when I drink it, I get this feeling, this reminiscent, it's hard to describe. It's not creamy, but there's a milk aspect to it. Now, you may not have that same, reaction to nettle. I don't know if I brought nettle with me. I don't think I did. I have a giant thing of nettle because I use it medicinally all the time. But nettle's fantastic. If you can find a nettle tea blend that you like, a prepackaged tea bag one, and absolutely do it. It's a much more bioavailable than a calcium supplement, and it's a very safe way to get calcium into your diet. I do not recommend calcium supplements ever to anyone. I think I've talked about that in the past. Calcium, when you increase your serum calcium too fast, it increases your risk of cardiovascular disease tremendously. So you really want to have enough vitamin K2 to escort and chaperone that calcium to where you want. So most people in Western countries get way enough calcium from your food. You just need to make sure it's bioavailable, you're digesting it, and then you're grabbing it with your K2 and taking it to your bones. So if you want extra calcium or you think you need it, get it from nettle. Drink nettle tea, because then you're going to get hydration, you're going to get all these other minerals. There's just tons of other minerals in it, and so it's like a tonic. And so there are blends of nettle tea out there that you can just Google it and find it on Amazon, or they'll probably have it at Trader Joe's before we know it. They have some great tea blends that are fantastic priced, so I always look there first. Okay, so green tea, I wasn't going to even mention this one, but I decided, how can I skip a healing teas and beverages talk without mentioning green tea? Just suffice to say, green tea is fantastic. It does have caffeine in it, just a little bit. Green tea and black tea are the same, meaning the actual herb is the same herb, the same plant, okay? It's called Camellia sinensis, right? And that is the plant that is green tea and black tea. And then there's all these different black teas and green teas. It's how they process the leaf. So what happens is with black tea, they let it oxidize, so it has a lot more tannins and all the let's see here, I have the name for it. I'm going to massacre the name here. The catechins that are in the green tea, in the fresh leaf, become oxidized, and you lose almost all the catechins when you turn it to black tea. But green tea, you blanch the leaf, right, when it's fresh, and you keep the catechins. So that's the main difference between green tea and black tea, is Black tea has more caffeine, has way more tannins, and almost no catechins. So these are all words that mean nothing, so you're like, great, why do I care? Okay, so we'll go on. So these are some of the benefits of the different types of green tea. And when I say green tea, I mean the plant itself. It can be black as well. But I will go into it a little more detail. Here's some healing benefits. I'm sorry about the fuzziness of this one. When I think of green tea, I think of weight loss, right? It will help you lose weight. I think of brain health and eyesight. Those are the big ones, right? But it also will help your gums and teeth. And there's so many studies, there's like thousands of studies on green tea. So if you can handle the slight amount of caffeine, I recommend it. It's fantastic. A lot of times I'll take one of my herbal teas because even though I'm an herbal expert, I don't like most herbal teas. So I will take my green tea, which I find pleasant, and then I'll take some other tea like chamomile and I'll put them together. So usually I'll put 2 bags in one and I'll get chamomile and green tea, or I'll get something else and green tea.
What about the store-bought green tea?
Yeah, back there I had a Kirkland brand that I love. Because Kirkland, to me, from Costco, that's one of my favorite teas.
But this one's in a bottle, it's already made up.
You can drink those too.
Okay.
What I worry about with those is look on the back. The first ingredient is usually water. Second is corn syrup, almost always. And I highly do recommend you do not use any kind of corn syrup in anything evermore.
Maybe referring to is Arizona.
Oh, yes.
Green.
I was addicted to Arizona iced tea back in 1992. Oh my God, 92. I drank that stuff like I was going to say, don't drink it, that's not good.
Oh.
Okay. That's good stuff.
But I will say, man, it's delicious, right? At least back then.
I swapped it from drinking sweet tea to that, so I could get out of sweet
Yeah,
tea.
you're going to find after this lecture here that I'm hoping to inspire you all to never buy like a beverage like that, like the packaged one like that. There are so many choices. You guys are going to walk out of here overwhelmed, okay? Because I'm only on the herbal teas. We haven't got to everything else yet. So there are so many healthy things you can drink. You're going to find it. You're going to find something you like, that's going to be healthy and medicinal and you can, pleasant, and it's worth doing. It's worth doing because our lives are short. Why not let's be as healthy as we can, right? So yeah, I just don't buy any packaged drinks like that at all. All this right here, that's my stash. That's my personal stash, right? So this is the stuff, I made this presentation based on what I do, right? Okay, so I wouldn't recommend it. That's although, there's treats occasionally, I guess, but whatever. So, okay, this is so the main ingredient in green tea that I think is awesome from a medicinal standpoint is EGCG, okay? You might see it in supplements sometimes. They'll derive it, they extract it from green tea. That's where they get this ingredient, and usually you'll see it in weight loss supplements. So green tea weight loss supplement with EGCG, which is just gallocatechin gallate, which is this catechin, that's a polyphenol, which is just a chemical constituent that's in the green tea that's extremely healthy for all of these things right here, right? So I didn't even make it so you could read the published medical studies, but they're there when you look at the PowerPoints later. Yeah.
How many cups of that turmeric, is that
Turmeric, yeah.
turmeric
Yeah.
green tea do you have to drink to equal, say, 1 ibuprofen tablet?
Oh,
That
God.
is a really interesting question, and I don't typically like to drink my turmeric, right? Because that's way back earlier in the presentation was the ginger turmeric I have back there too. I usually take turmeric as a supplement, and I buy a supplement called curcumazorb, and one of those supplements is equal, but it has bioperine in it, which is a black pepper, which makes it more bioavailable. And then you also mix MCT oil powder with it because you need a fat. If you do that, one supplement, 1,000 milligrams, is equal to an ibuprofen. But now the thing is, you'll never get that much from tea, right? You're never going to get that much. So the turmeric in the tea is just, if you like the taste of it, great. I'm not sure how much of a medicinal benefit you're going to get from the turmeric in the tea. Okay? All right. So. From a medicinal perspective. It's not going to hurt from the water, though. You need water and all that. So, drinking teas with medicinal things is good. It's just not going to have a therapeutic, measurable benefit. Okay? Okay. What would help with inflammation and pain, depending on what your pain is ginger tea. Like, for example, this morning, I've had a really bad week, right, real busy, and so I got up this morning to get ready to come here, and I had bad stomachache. And I'm like crouched over, like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to stand up in front of everyone. This is normal for me. And so my mom's like, can I make you a cup of ginger tea? And I'm like, yes, Mom, that'd be great, thank you. And so she gave me a cup of ginger tea. A third of the cup later, all my pain's gone. Ginger is very anti-inflammatory and it's anti-pain, especially for the gastrointestinal tract. So you'll see I have 2 gingers back there because I need ginger. And it doesn't always work for me, but it usually does. Yes?
Does ginger affect your blood pressure?
Not negatively, no. So not from a tea form. You would need to take, actually I don't think there's any contraindications for ginger. Licorice root, on the other hand, I would caution anyone to be careful with licorice root in any tea if you have high blood pressure. Because it will slowly over time, if you drink it daily as a tea, it will raise your blood pressure, right? So be mindful of licorice root. Okay, let's keep going because we got so much to do. Okay. So that was out. So now we're on coffee. So people think, oh, coffee. I'll go to lectures and people say, oh, well, I'm doing better. I'm not drinking as much coffee. And I'm like, why? Why are you just cutting out the coffee? Coffee is one of the most antioxidant foods we drink as Americans. Like that's our primary antioxidant food, coffee. Okay? Now, coffee can be bad. It has mold on it. And like 90% of the coffees out there have mold on it. So I would encourage you to try to invest, if you're a coffee drinker, invest your money and your time in finding a high quality coffee, right? It's worth doing, and it's worth your money, even if you spend twice as much on coffee. If you're a drinker and you drink it regularly and you can make it a habit, or maybe it's already a habit, then make it medicinal, right? Make it medicinal and do that by buying a very high quality coffee. Okay, so how many can you drink? How many can you drink? Well, first of all, this I thought was funny. 85 benefits of coffee. There's no way you can read all that, but the fact of the matter is, suffice it to say, it's been proven in 1 million studies to be extremely good for you in 1,000 ways. So there you go. 6 cups is the answer. You can drink up to 6 cups for medicinal purposes a day. After 6 cups, it's diminishing returns. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend more than 6. And you know, I usually do about 3 a day. I put them in a big mug. Because remember, it's cups, right? So I have a big giant mug that holds. Yes?
And then the caffeine study and how it stays.
Oh yeah, so some other previous slides I've given is, you know, drink it in the morning as early as you can because the half-life of caffeine is 5 to 7 hours. So which means if you drink it at 10, you're still going to have half that caffeine in your blood 5 hours later. If you drink another cup at noon, you're going to have that. And I had a graph that showed how by 2 in the morning, it usually takes people till 2 in the morning to get rid of all the caffeine if they drink at noon. Meaning, you know, they have a cup at 8 and 10 and noon, they'll still have caffeine in their blood at 2 a.m. So if you have sleep issues, which was one of my previous talks was on sleep, be careful with the caffeine in coffee. Be careful with it. Drink it early as you can, like the instant you get up, and then maybe stop. Drink your 3 cups, and then drink some of the other thousands of things I'm going to show you here. Okay, so what are some coffee alternatives? So, you know, I like to drink my 2 or 3 cups in my big mug, but then after that, I transition to a coffee alternative. That's how I manage my caffeine because I have sleep problems myself. So this one is funny. It's called Mud Water, and I'm not recommending any brand. I'm just showing you that there are tons of coffee alternatives out there. This one's great because it has tons of really healthy things in it, and it tastes delicious. So that's something to consider. It has chai spices, which is a blend of like 9 different herbs, but then it has turmeric and cinnamon, and then all these mushrooms, which are medicinal mushrooms and cancer fighting. Yes?
Back in the 90s, and
Yes.
earlier,
Yep.
I remember hearing, more than reading really, but hearing about possibly high blood pressure issues or kidney
That's
overload
all been
issues and stuff
proven.
like
That's all been proven false.
Cool.
And it has to do with the mold in the coffee and
Okay.
not high quality coffee and all that. So I can do a whole 2-hour lecture just on coffee.
Okay,
So
that-
my main recommendation is if you're in the habit of drinking coffee, I don't want you to stop because it's so hard to create habits, right? So keep your habit. Just improve the quality of your coffee, right?
And how will you know what the quality of the coffee
You gotta
is?
get online and do some homework, like start looking and say mold-free coffee. And there's a couple ones that I could give you recommendations for. You're welcome to write me an email and say, hey Deb, you mentioned some mold-free coffees. I'll give you some recommendations, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones, right? There's some good ones out there, yes?
Is acid-free coffee like kava just as beneficial?
So kava is an herb, and I didn't mention that one in this presentation. Gosh, there's so many herbs, there's just no way to cover them all. Kava is not actually coffee. right? So I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but anyway, you'll have to look into it. Come talk to me, and maybe, and we'll talk about which one you're talking about. But we have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna keep going.
Okay.
All right, this is another coffee alternative that grown on me, because like I said, I drink my coffee first, and then I move to coffee alternatives, right? And this is a great one because it has dandelion root in it, and so I love that. But it has other things too, like chicory and carob and ramon seeds and all kinds of stuff. And I like the dark roast the best. But there's 6 flavors here. You see the 6 colors? There's 6 different flavors. You can experiment, find the one you like. It's real dark. It looks like that, like the dark roast. And it's not exactly like coffee, I'm gonna tell you right now, right? But it meets that need to sip on something dark and roasty flavor, and you get used to it. And I like to add my MCT oil powder to make it creamy, and a little bit of sweetener, an approved sweetener, and then I'm usually okay, with not having 8 cups of coffee, right?
Before we move away from coffee,
Yes.
can you please give me your opinion on decaf coffee or mixing decaf and regular for 50%?
Yeah, that's okay.
Good, bad.
The decaffeinated, the process they use to decaffeinate it can use a lot of chemicals, but there are processes, some places that are reputable in terms of how they decaffeinate it. What you need to do is your homework. You got to get online and say, chemical-free decaffeinated coffee, and start doing some homework. Mold-free coffee, and in any place that advertises that they're mold-free, that means they test for it, and usually they'll have a chemical-free decaffeination process, for their decaf version. So just do some homework, find something, make it medicinal. All right, so this is another one that I use. I have it back there if anybody wants to try. It's a powder. It comes like that. You can mix it if you want to try it. Put it in a little cup and give it a try. I love this one. I even like it better than the Ticino, and it's almost purely dandelion root, but it tastes really good. And it's roasty, but I don't like it by itself. I like to put a little bit of cream in it, and my cream I use is MCT oil powder because that also helps for weight loss. And but it makes it creamy and tastes really good. And
What's that, what would you say?
MCT oil powder.
MCT oil powder. I've talked about that in previous lectures. MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides, and it's a fat. And so I like to put fat in my coffee because if you drink fat in the morning and eat fat in the morning, it stimulates weight loss. And severe obesity and type 2 diabetes runs in my family. It's hard to believe that, but it does. And so I have to work really hard to stay healthy. And so, yeah, I do all the weight loss things to keep myself, adequate. But I have to work at it, right? Yes.
Should you, I drink dandelion root just from pulling it up and drying it, but
Beautiful.
should I roast
A+.
it? I don't
If you
roast
want
it.
to, you don't have to, but you can. Roasting sometimes changes the chemical constituents. I think that your roasting is just going to make it a dark, toasty type taste, but all the health benefits would be just fine drying it the way you have it. In fact, that's fantastic that you do that. Awesome. I think that's fantastic. Dandelion root, I have a special affinity for. You can't read this real well, but maybe you can squint. I did a research class in medical school where we worked in a lab and we grew dandelion root and we extracted the chemical constituents from the root and we put them in syringes and we had cultures like you see with the labs and the white coats and the little overheads and all these pipettes and and we put cancer cells in a little culture and then we put dandelion extract into the culture and then would count the cancer cells and see if it was effective at being anti-cancer fighting, and that was just an herbal research program that I was involved in, and it's very effective anti-cancer fighting as well. So there's just many things it does for your health, so it's great to incorporate into your diet. Okay, so let's keep going. These are other coffee alternatives. I've tried these two. I have not tried those two, but most of these have a combination of chicory and rye and barley and dandelion root, right? That's really the common ingredient, and all of those are extremely good for you. We already went through why barley tea is so good for you. So these are great ones to experiment with if you need. And then here's another one. These days the fad is mushroom coffees, and it's like coffee, but then they blend it with all these other stuff, so it's like lower caffeine, but then you get all these other medicinal things. And mushrooms are, I could do a whole lecture on mushrooms, but they have a lot of anti-cancer fighting properties and other things, cognitive health aspects to them. So it's, I'm sorry?
I want that.
Yeah, I do too. So I have a 13 mushroom blend that I love in a jar, and when when I make my coffee alternative after my main cup of coffee, I will take half a scoop of it and put it in my coffee and mix it in. So I make my own mushroom coffee because you'll find these are really, really expensive, but you can buy mushroom blends online, super cheap, and then, relatively speaking, compared to that, and then you just mix it with your coffee alternative, and then you have mushroom coffee, right? And then you don't have to pay, $1,000 for it. But it's up to you. Some people don't have time to do all the stuff that I do, so, there it is. Another thing that people forget about is hot chocolate. Now, the milk in it, it's dark hot chocolate that you really want, but chocolate, cacao, is a superfood. It has tons of antioxidant properties. So sometimes I'll make my second cup of coffee after, not coffee, it'll just be dark chocolate. And I'll mix mushrooms with it and that kind of thing. But dark chocolate, I highly recommend everybody incorporate into their lifestyle if they can. It does have a little caffeine. It doesn't usually bother me too much in the evenings. But for a morning cup of coffee, it's fantastic, really good for cardiovascular health. But you want not the creamy ones that have all these substitutes in it. You really want cacao powder, and then to blend it with the things you want. So mushroom powder and some MCT oil powder to make it creamy or something like that. And don't get something like Hershey's or something that might have some additives, right? Well, I'm not against Hershey's, I'd have to look at it to know. But okay, so there are some great hot chocolate recipes out there. This one has pistachios and lavender and coconut cream on the top. It's really delicious. I've actually tried that recipe.
If you get a chance, you may want to investigate in the future.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't expect you to know about now, but Hershey's
Yes.
makes the chocolate syrup.
Yep.
They make the normal chocolate syrup. They have a new thing called a special dark blend that I assume is just dark blend in name
It
only.
has
Dark?
at least 80%.
Well, if it's a dark
It's not an
blend, that's what you
80%.
want. You always want the dark chocolate. It is much more healthy. It has the chemical constituents that are healthy in it. So even chocolate as a dessert, try to get dark chocolate. That's what you're looking for, is dark chocolate. But yes, that's great. Personally, that's great. Just I would be concerned about the sugar. That's all. So you just got to be careful about the sugar. Sugar, in my mind, is poison.
Check Amazon.
Yeah, check in. Yep, Amazon's great. I don't know how I live without it.
Didn't
Okay,
know
and
that.
so, okay, now we're on vegetable juices. I want to just mention this because it is a beverage. It's a healing beverage. This was me just a couple days ago. Because when I have my stomach problems, which is my ailment that's personal to me, usually if I can drink some juices, and aloe vera juice and some ginger tea, that's how I get my stomach and my intestines back to normal again, right? And so, but all of this right here, which is mainly celery, ginger, green apple, cucumber, and I have a big wad of parsley down there, and some kiwi, all of that was a little tiny handful right there. Yes?
Do you do your own aloe vera juice from aloe vera plants?
Yes, you can. In fact, I have done that before, and we're going to get to that soon.
Okay.
Okay, so here's, once again, the picture of just a couple days ago, and then the juice that results from it. Okay, and usually this much right here will make me 2 big mason jars, right? So, of juice. And it's actually tasty. To me, it's grown on me. But celery juice is very controversial, so it became a fad recently. I don't know how many of you have heard of celery juice, and there was this big fad of celery juice about 3 years ago, and it was really based on this book right here, and he's not a doctor, and he has an interesting way of looking at the world, so that's fine, but he claims there are sodium clusters in the celery that are more absorbable and all that. That's not proved by any kind of science yet anyway, but it might be someday. But anyway, there is sodium in celery, quite a lot of sodium, so it's something to be mindful of, and that's why I'm bringing it up. If you have high blood pressure and you're trying to be easy on your sodium, I just wouldn't drink 2 mason jars full of celery juice. Right? I would probably keep it to 1 to 2 cups, and I'd probably mix it with cucumber, so that way it's not pure celery juice. So it's just something to keep in mind, and I wanted to bring it up to you. I've never had anyone...
Is eating raw celery the same thing?
It's so little salt in just eating the sticks. You're never gonna, if you look back here, I was doing the entire celery, the entire thing, and then I make 2 jars, right? Okay, that would be too much. Probably for me, seeing a patient, I would not tell someone who has high blood pressure to drink that much. I would say keep it to 1 cup. So that would means mix other stuff, a lot of other stuff into your juice, like cucumbers and other things. But for me, I get muscle cramps really easy, especially my hands. Try to stretch my hand out, and I'll get cramps in my legs sometimes, especially if I go running and jogging because I'm an athlete and I run around. And I'll drink celery juice, and it's awesome because it has salt, and that's what helps me not have muscle cramps. right? So I find the salt very absorbable and a healthy type of salt. So it's a healthy salt, but I still wouldn't overdo it. So that's why I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so let's go on. So on to fruit juices, or fruit and vegetable juices. Another vegetable juice that's worth an honorable mention here is carrot juice. How many of you have heard of the Gerson therapy? Okay, good, you guys are learning something today, it's super awesome. The Gerson therapy is, I would say very popular, but it's not really accepted in the medical field here in the United States. And it's basically a naturopathic type treatment for cancer, right? And it works really well with leukemia and a lot of childhood cancer type things too. But you can look into it. These are the books I own, and they have a lot of a lot of people will go down to Mexico to learn how to do this therapy. But basically, it's based on two different premises, and one of the primary aspects of the treatment that's a major part of the therapy is drinking 16 pints of carrot juice, fresh squeezed a day. So carrots is it. So you're going to get so tired of carrots, right? But carrots juice, and so why carrots? So carrots contain this luteolol, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a bioflavonoid that induces cell death in cancer cells, right? And apparently it's so, and it suppresses tumor angiogenesis and inhibits the proliferation of the cancer cells. So it's really good for cancer, but you have to drink a lot of it. And you drink so much of it that the cancer starts dying so quickly, if it works for you, that you have this other component of the Gerson therapy, which is enemas, to get your liver to detox all of it, right? So those are that's the Gerson therapy. Carrot juice and enemas. And it's coffee enemas, which is interesting because the coffee opens the portal vein, and so every 4 minutes, all your blood circulation goes through your liver, and that enema will help get rid of all the broken down apoptotic, that's the broken cells, tumor cells. It helps you flush it out so you don't re-poison yourself, right? And so that's the Gerson therapy, and apparently works really good for childhood cancers especially, but there's a lot of people who go down there. But the good thing to think about is if you do like juice, if you go to Trader Joe's and you see a little carrot juice there, why not drink it, right? Grab yourself carrot juice. So it's something to keep in mind. Really good for anti-cancer fighting. Okay, how many of you guys drink nut milks? Have you heard of nut milks? Okay, yeah. So I love nut milks. I didn't until I got my Vitamix blender, which I think is absolutely amazing. I love my Vitamix blender. But you can put almonds, I soak my almonds and for 24 hours, and you'll see the water gets cloudy, and you rinse it, and every 6 hours or so you rinse it, and then I peel the skins off, which is a big pain in the butt, but you do. You peel all the skins off. Now you have white almonds, and they're sprouted, which means they're the enzyme that keeps seeds from rotting. You need to get that off because it causes digestive distress. So you rinse them to get that off, you peel the skins off, and then you take those soaked almonds and you put them in a blender and blend them up. And I'm telling you, if you've never had fresh made almond milk, I highly recommend you try it one day. It is way better than anything you get at the store. It's creamy and delicious. It is so good. And it's a big pain to make it, so it's a treat when I make it, but you make it with a nut milk bag. So here's my little 3 nut milk bags. You can buy them from Amazon, really inexpensive, and they come in a little 3-pack. So here's the big one, and the medium and the small one. You can see the discoloration from my carrots, and I also use them for juicing my juices. I'll blend it, and then you can pour it in there and just milk the bag to get your vegetable juice out. Because my juicer is a auger style, and so it doesn't matter. So I use it for everything, but those are called nut milk bags. They're very, very fine, and they're perfect for almond milk. So it's worth doing. If you add a little cashew nuts into the almonds, you get this intense creamy taste, and it's a little bit of sweet to it, and it's just divine. I was going to make some for you, but if you see the setup got so big back there that I was like, I gotta call it quits. But it's worth trying if you ever want to experiment. Coconut milk is also something that is extremely good for you. Coconut water will reduce your risk of kidney stones. It has a lot of potassium in it. Now, coconut water back around 12 or 15 years ago got really popular with athletes. So they'd go to the gym, go to the YMCA, you'd see the power walkers, and then they'd be guzzling their coconut water, right? So my only advice to you on that is there is so much potassium in coconut water, you have to balance it, okay? So what happens is, I've talked in previous lectures about the electrolyte 4-way teeter-totter, okay? So imagine a teeter-totter that has a teeter-totter one direction and then another direction. It's like a 4-way teeter-totter. One of the teeter-totters is potassium and sodium, and the other one is magnesium and calcium. If you increase one, it's going to affect all the rest of them. right? So if you're drinking 2 and 3 coconut waters, your potassium is it's heavy. You're gonna have to increase your sodium, right? You have to balance that. You might start getting muscle cramps. It can cause heart palpitations, heart arrhythmias. Your heart's very sensitive to potassium. So just be mindful of not overdoing the coconut water, right? And a lot of coconut waters have sugar in them, so I don't recommend that. This one is an interesting one. It's at Walmart, and I've had, when I was working with a group of individuals who were training for a bicycle race across the country called RAM, Race Across America, they just inhaled this stuff. They thought it was the most delicious thing ever, right? And it's good. It has a sugar substitute in it, so it's not actually sugar. It's erythritol, so I approve of the sweetener in here. So this is a good one. Like if you wanted to drink coconut water, you can get it at Walmart. You might find it tasty, very, very sweet. I find it too sweet, but it's a safe sweet. It's the erythritol.
I mix it.
Oh, do you? Yeah, you can mix it. That's a great idea. But I approve of this one, right? So it's a good one, worth keeping in mind. You might find it tasty, especially in the summertime when you just want something sweet with some potassium and electrolytes in it. That'd be great. Yes?
Cashew nuts raw are poisonous, so I found out by reading, and so I guess they need to be cooked before you put them with almond milk.
So, you know,
If you get raw
I've
cashew
not
nuts.
heard that they're poisonous. There's a lot of legumes and other things that have enzymes that our bodies find toxic. So, like for example, I told you I sprout my almonds because all seeds have a enzyme on them that prevents them from rotting, right? And then when it rains and this rain comes by, and the rain rinses the enzyme off and provides moisture that allows the seed to sprout. So basically that's what I'm doing with the almonds, is the enzyme that prevents it from rotting is toxic to us. And so a lot of people, if they eat too many almonds and they OD, they overdose on almonds one day because they're whatever, they can get stomach cramps. And that's from the enzyme that's on the almond skins, and right? So that's why I just peel them off. I soak them. So you can soak your cashews if you want. Soak them for a day or two, or a day. Actually, 24 hours is usually the max you want to do. And rinse the water though. So I have to change the water 3 times. That's so every 8 hours change the water, and then they're fine. Then that enzyme's gone. As far as toasting them and cooking them, there's another component in some foods, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, that is in cashews that some people might be sensitive to. But I'm going to tell you right now, most people are not that sensitive to cashews, not enough that I would recommend roasting them, okay? You can soak them, but even that's not necessary because cashews are unusual, they don't have the same enzyme on them. So for me, I just eat them raw, right? I put them in my almond milk and I just do it in moderation, but almost everything I try to do in moderation so that way you're not ODing on some aspect of it. If you're sensitive to cashews and you want to roast them to be safe, go for it. I'll leave that up to all of you guys to decide what you want to do. I personally don't think it's necessary. Okay, carbonated beverages. People say, oh, it pulls, it leaches the phosphorus, it leaches stuff from your bones, it's bad for your bones, it's bad for your teeth, and there's all this misinformation. So, carbonated beverages, if it's just water that's carbonated, it's very healthy, okay? And that means it doesn't have anything else in it. And like tonic water and seltzer water and all that other stuff, yeah, they can have other additives in the water that can cause some problems, but just water with carbonation, which is very hard to find, by the way, unless you have a maker that makes it like this, right, a soda stream. But sparkling water, the carbon dioxide will stick to the inside of your stomach, and the bubbles do, sort of like when you're in a bathtub and you see the bubbles on your skin, and they transdermally absorb. Carbon dioxide is very easy to absorb through all your membranes, your mucosa, everywhere, in your mouth, in your esophagus, in your stomach, and it pulls oxygen from the hemoglobin to dump into the tissue. So it's actually will hyperoxygenate any tissue it touches. So, like especially if you have esophageal cancer or if you have esophagus issues or stomach issues, carbonated water is great. It will soothe your stomach and heal your digestive tract by telling the hemoglobin to dump the oxygen in that region, because that's the physiological signal to release oxygen to your tissue is carbon dioxide. That's why I'm doing jumping jacks right? That brings oxygen to your muscles because you're creating carbon dioxide when you use your muscles. You create carbon dioxide, and then you breathe oxygen, and then the hemoglobin, oh, you're using this muscle, and then it releases oxygen to that muscle. Same idea with carbon dioxide bubbles. So the bath fizzy bombs, people put a bath fizzy bomb in their bath and it fizzes. That's carbon dioxide. It's citric acid mixed with baking soda. If you stay in it, the bubbles will stick to your skin, they will transdermally absorb, and you will hyperoxygenate all your tissue, and supermodels use it to get rid of cellulite. You can pay a lot of money, and you can spray yourself with water, and you can get in this big bag, and they'll inflate the bag with carbon dioxide, and then you will create carbon, it's called carbonic acid on your skin, and supermodels will pay like $200 an hour to lay in this bag to get rid of their cellulite, because it hyperoxygenates their skin with carbon dioxide. Now, you can do this for a couple bucks by buying a bath bomb, right? But carbon dioxide that you drink will do the same thing to the inside of your intestines. It's just healing, okay? All right, so soda stream makers are great because you can make your own herbal blends and then put carbon dioxide in them, and then it's great. So one thing you can do with your own soda stream maker is you can make your own root beers. I put these here because these are all my herbs that I use to make my own root beer, which I'm still refining my recipe, so I didn't bring it for you to taste because I haven't got it to where I like the taste yet. But if you smell, it smells really good. So this is sassafras right here.
Oh, I love sassy.
Does it smell like root beer?
What about mineral water that's carbonated?
It's great.
Is that bad?
But nope, mineral water's great. Yep. Just you don't want sugars in there, right? No sugars and no sodium. Those are the two things that usually mess things up, is sugars and sodium. So tonic waters and seltzer waters a lot of times will have that in them, right? But mineral water's great. Okay, so here's a basic root beer recipe. You can make your own concentrate syrup and mix it with carbonated water. So I have a bunch of carbonated waters back there and some things you can mix and try. So I have that stuff back there. But you can make it's really easy to make your own syrups and then mix it and make your own herbal healing, I call it a healing root beer recipe, right? You can do the same thing with cola. So here's an original Coca-Cola recipe. You can try making it yourself. All these herbs are so healthy, it's a fantastic thing to play with. Now, how many of you have heard of shrubs? So shrubs are quintessential colonial Americana, right? So as an American, you all need to know what a shrub is. So now you guys know what a shrub is. Shrubs are drinking vinegars. And so, you've all heard of probably Johnny Appleseed. Well, what people don't know is the only way you were allowed to go out west is if there was an apple orchard out there in advance of you. Because water had dysentery and problems, giardia and problems with water, but people drank the apple cider from the apples that were at the apple orchard. So you needed an apple orchard already established before you went out west, because that was what you drank from. And so, the reason the apple a day keeps the doctor away is even that saying came about is because a long time ago, like right now, if we pass a vineyard, we don't think, oh my gosh, I wonder if those grapes are yummy. I want to taste that grape. No, we think that's going to be a good wine, right? Well, back in the older days in colonial America, when you passed an apple orchard, you did not think, I wonder if those are yummy tasting apples. No, what we would think is, that's great apple cider. And some of it would turn into hard apple cider too, right? And then apple brandy, and that's what people drank. That was their safe liquid to drink. So, because of that tradition they wanted to also figure out how they could make prohibition started, and how do we make the apples, give us our liquid that we need to drink, while at the same time maybe not having as much alcohol content. And so that was when they came up with shrubs, which shrub is just drinking vinegar, and they would try to preserve their berries, which would go bad because refrigeration wasn't real, prevalent back then. And so they would put herbs and fruit into the vinegar to preserve them, but then also they would mix them with, it became popular to mix it with sparkling water to have drinking vinegars. Okay, so apple cider vinegar has a lot of potassium in it. It's great. It increases your hydrochloric acid. Most of us, after we get about 50 years old, some of us even younger, 45, our stomach acid starts getting lower, and you start having a harder time absorbing your vitamins and digesting your proteins. And then the biggest indication that you have low stomach acid is you will have heartburn 2 hours after you eat, 2 to 3 hours after you eat. If you have heartburn 2 or 3 hours after you eat a meal, then that means you do not have enough hydrochloric acid, most likely. And one of the best ways to prove this theory is to get a shrub. and you can buy them online, you can buy them almost anywhere. There's so many different shrubs out there, it's amazing. And then you just mix a little of your apple cider vinegar shrub with some water and you drink it. You can even drink it straight, although that's pretty strong. And you do it before dinner, before your first bite. It will increase your hydrochloric acid and you will not have heartburn 2 or 3 hours later. But it's a great thing to drink before dinner, but any time is fine. Let's see here. I have several books on shrubs because I love making them. I usually get my apple cider vinegar right here. This is the one that I like, and then I will make my own shrubs. So I will go harvest. There's tons of raspberries and blackberries growing wild around here. If you find your little secret spot and you go harvest them, and then you put all your blackberries in a mason jar and fill that up with apple cider vinegar. Mash it up. You can muddle it, and then let it sit for a few weeks. Drain it off. You got yourself a shrub. Now, a lot of the recipes call for sugar in them. I never do that. I always sweeten it either with erythritol, monk fruit, or allulose, or some other ones like glycine and ribose, which I'll talk about later. But we're running out of time, so let me just go quickly here. So that's that. Here's some more shrubs. There's tons of them. I could go on forever. This is another vinegar that I like. I don't usually drink it, so it's not necessarily a beverage, but it's on the same line as shrubs. It's called fire cider, and you